Good afternoon and welcome to our live broadcast for our TreeHouse virtual high tea. We are going to give it a couple of minutes. It's 2:56, so 4 more minutes to let people get in and get situated. But I just wanted to welcome you all and let you know we are here on this end and are excited to be able to spend the next 45 minutes with you. So I'm going to back out for a minute, let you all get a chance to get your goodies all situated, and I will be back in a few minutes. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to our very first virtual event for our TreeHouse, and we're so glad that you could join us today. We have people from Whatcom County, Skagit County, all over the state of Washington and even out of state, so we welcome you all today. I'd like to say it's different times. Normally we'd be having a luncheon and celebrating with you all in person, and obviously this year we weren't able to, but we're hoping that the event that we have planned for today, it will give you an idea of what we're doing at our TreeHouse during these times and being able to still support our families in Whatcom County. Again, I'm just so glad that you are all able to join us and to be a part of this event. Hopefully for those of you that are living here in Whatcom County, you received your goodie bags today with your tea. I have my lovely dessert set up back here. I'd like to do a couple of thank yous before I introduce our first speaker today. First of all, I'd like to give a big, very, very heartfelt thank you to Carolyn Gibbons, who has spent the last week baking all of these delicious treats that you have in front of you. I'd also like to thank Mimi Megacy for the help in getting the tea and putting the bags together, as well as Marla Tyree for all of her work on the invitation and the beautiful graphics. Those 3 board members have really put a lot of work into this. And I'd also like to recognize our other board members that spent the day delivering all of these treats to you. I'd like to thank Laura Cardinal, Ellie Clothier, Ann Work, and Jamie Schwint. Thank you so much for everything for this event. And lastly, I'd like to give a big shout out to Builders Alliance for being our sponsor for this year. Without their sponsorship, it would be hard to bring this program to you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker today, Caitlin Koch, the Executive Director of our TreeHouse. And let me...
Hello and welcome. My name is Caitlin. I'm the Executive Director at our TreeHouse. Thank you for joining us today. It's so important that you're here, and even though things are a little bit different this year, I'm so glad that you're with us. 1 in 17 children in Washington will experience the death of a parent or sibling by age 18, and that number more than doubles to 245,000 by the age of 25. Early loss significantly alters children's developmental trajectory, and without adequate support, bereaved youth are at a significantly higher risk for developing mental health challenges, social withdrawal, as well as increased occurrence of illness and accidents. Unaddressed childhood grief can lead to short and long-term difficulties, including poor academic performance, mental health challenges, and even early mortality. Grief-focused, trauma-informed education and programming can have a profound impact on bereaved children's behavioral and emotional adjustment to loss. Through the provision of no-cost, innovative grief support services for the entire family unit, our TreeHouse aspires to impact bereaved youth's behavioral and emotional adjustment to loss. We strive to ensure that grief has a place and that youth and families do not have to be alone in their grief. At our TreeHouse, we offer both center-based programming as well as community supports. Our center-based programming includes our Family Night program for youth 5 to 12, a Teen Night program for youth 13 to 18, and our Young Adult group for youth 18 to 25. We were also offered funding this past year for an anticipatory grief group for families anticipating a death. While COVID has slowed down the progress of that group, it is still on the horizon. The goals of our center-based programming are for participants to experience increased connection to themselves and others, an enhanced capacity to express their emotions, an increased ability to tolerate distress, and a broadened understanding of typical grief responses. We also strive to improve communication within the family unit. Over the last 10 months, the need for grief support in our community has increased dramatically. For those who are already grieving, they are often experiencing compounded grief due to other layers of loss. Many people are also feeling an increased sense of isolation, particularly those who are grieving. There's also a decreased availability of the normal support systems that people typically find in schools and other systems that children are involved in. And for those who have experienced a death during COVID, one can imagine that the process is even more difficult. They're often unable to visit the person who's dying in the hospital and don't have the opportunity to say goodbye. They're also unable to come together after a death to memorialize the life of the person who died. In the last 2 weeks alone, 6 youth have joined our TreeHouse after experiencing the death of a parent during quarantine. Our TreeHouse is keenly aware of the increased need for grief support, and we are committed to meeting the rising demand for services supporting bereaved youth. In order to do this, we need your support. I would now like to introduce Katie and Aaliyah Dunn, who will provide an intimate glimpse into what our TreeHouse does and why we do it.
I guess I should start from the beginning. 6 years ago, Aaliyah was in her bedroom with her mom, Becca, and her mom suffered a massive stroke. 2 days later, Aaliyah and her mom were found by her older sister and the paramedics. So that, of course, started our story, right? Aaliyah was 2.5 years old, so we spent the next 4 years flying back and forth from Colorado to Washington, figuring out all the things that needed to happen for us to be together, right? And that took about 4 years. And so now we're on our 3rd year together. Today, Aaliyah is sad because she misses her mother and she doesn't remember her. She said it is strange because she looks at the pictures and she knows she's part of her family, but she doesn't have any personal memories anymore, but yet she feels really sad that she doesn't remember her mom. This is our reality, and how confusing it will be for her and is for her now to miss someone that she doesn't remember. I can't tell you how many times we've been grateful for TreeHouse. Grief is a strange thing for children and for adults. For children, it kind of changes quickly, but as the adult responsible for someone with that great loss, we have to have such a great understanding of how to take care of them and how to take care of ourselves. And I don't think without TreeHouse I would have been able to do that. And gosh, it's kind of emotional. It's emotional because it was a place that we didn't have to be that kind of unique family that was very different. Aaliyah wasn't the only child that had lost a parent. It was a place where we could be raw and real, and even when we didn't want to talk about grief or we weren't feeling that we needed to process anything out loud, we were still surrounded by people that were going through the exact same thing. And there were many times where we didn't want to go on those Tuesday nights, after working and going to school and all the activities. And well, mostly I didn't want to go. And then this one would look at me and she always wanted to go. And it always brought me back to the very first day meeting in that basement of awesomeness where they looked right past me and looked to Aaliyah and asked her if she wanted to make this commitment. And she did. And she signed the paperwork and she kept me accountable. And I think that proves that the program does reach these children. And in the beautiful way that it does, it reaches the parents and the guardians of these children that have experienced these great losses. So I'm very grateful to TreeHouse. I'm very grateful for Aaliyah for always wanting to go. So I don't even know what happens, but obviously it's awesome because she always wants to go and is always ready to step in for the Zoom meetings over lockdown. And we look forward to being able to go back in person and have that building and us all be in the same community, because I do believe that there's probably people out there that are not able to be reached right now that are going through this, and it's just going to be a longer time before they're able to join the TreeHouse family and feel that support that we have felt. So we, for one, believe in our TreeHouse and will be here as long as they'll have us.
Thank you, Katie and Aaliyah, for sharing your story. We're so grateful for your courage and your willingness to be vulnerable and let us all in on the impact that TreeHouse has had on you. Our ability to provide support for families like the Dunns is due to the generosity of donors like you. Katie mentioned we are all looking forward to the day when we can be back together again in person. In the meantime, we have done a number of things to host virtual groups for families. So we have hosted virtual Zoom groups in the spring, and over the last number of months, we found that our families were more interested in social connection than structured group time. So we have switched to providing social groups via Zoom, as well as monthly newsletters for families, activity kits that are delivered to families' doors, and moderated online chat groups for teens and adults, striving again to ensure that no family has to be alone in their grief. In addition to adapting our center-based services over the last 10 months, we have worked closely with the Whatcom County school districts to develop school-based support for grieving kids and families. This includes provision of grief education for educators and school administrators, ongoing school-based programming for children and youth who are grieving the death of a parent or sibling, and a collaborative response to community tragedies. I would now like to introduce you to Chris Cochran, the mental health coordinator for the Bellingham School District.
Hi, I'm Chris Cochran. I'm the mental health coordinator for Bellingham School. I want to say thank you for your donation and your partnership with our TreeHouse. Our TreeHouse partners with the district in a number of ways. First, when we have an individual child or a family that's experienced a loss, or even a small group of families that's experienced a loss, it's really important for our school counselors to know when they refer that family to our TreeHouse that they're going to get the best care and they're going to be supported well. Secondly, our district has a mobile response team. When the community experiences a loss that impacts the entire school, our mobile response team goes in and helps stabilize that school so the school can get back to what it does best, teaching and learning. Once that school is back on its feet and people are able to learn again and work again, there are still often children and families that need support. So as the mobile response team finishes its work with the school, we want to make sure that our TreeHouse is able to do their best work with our families. And our counselors and our MRT can refer those families on. That's been really helpful for us in knowing again that our families are well cared for. In some cases, our mobile response team has the privilege of working with our TreeHouse directly, and so that when we're in the school, our TreeHouse comes alongside of our team and can work with families, parents, and just help us do that work in different ways. And then afterwards, again, they pick up the pieces, sometimes with families that need ongoing care, and even after that, they can help refer them to individual providers in town. Thank you so much for your donation and your generosity and your partnership. Without our TreeHouse, we wouldn't be able to care for our kids and our families in the way we are now. Especially in these times, it's really important for our children and their parents to know that there's someone like our TreeHouse to help them. Thanks.
And thank you for allowing our TreeHouse to work with you and your district. It's been such an honor and a privilege to collaborate. An amazing team of staff and volunteers bring the Our TreeHouse mission to life. Our current program team consists of our youth and family coordinator, Erin Leadham, our teen night coordinator, Mary Capizzolo, and our young adult coordinator, Abby Russell. All are part-time employees who prioritize meeting the needs of grieving youth above everything else they have going on in their lives. We're also joined by a team of 15 enthusiastic volunteers who have maintained their commitment to our TreeHouse despite changing roles due to COVID. Our volunteers freely give of their time and talent to inspire hope and healing in our youth and families. They allow us to have a far greater impact than the four of us and our program team could have alone. Our volunteers represent a diverse group of individuals who share a common interest in ensuring that grieving youth and families receive support. In addition, many of our volunteers have experienced losses in their own lives and can thus relate to our participants on a very empathic level. I'd now like to introduce Sean, one of our young adult night volunteers.
Hello, my name is Sean McConnell, and I'm a volunteer at our TreeHouse. Volunteering with our TreeHouse has been an absolutely amazing experience for me, and I truly believe that we are doing amazing work. When I was 13 years old, I lost my mom to pancreatic cancer, and having a grief support resource at that age changed my life and gave me a sense of safety and comfortability. This is why I'm committed to our TreeHouse, because I want to help give space to people where they can come and get support through their grieving process. Our TreeHouse does a fantastic job at holding the space for families and young adults. Grief is a very complicated process that can be quite hard to understand, and having a space where you can go to learn about it and allow yourself to express the emotions can be very helpful. I have learned so much in my time volunteering at our TreeHouse and continue to learn so much. I aspire to be a grief counselor and to continue giving space to people in their time of grief. Having the resources allows families to feel less alone in their time of loss and tragedy, and to know that there are people out there that want to help guide them through this makes a huge difference. I want to thank you for taking your time to support us. Your donations make a world of difference and allow us to continue making a difference in people's lives. So thank you so very much for your time and your donations.
Thank you, Sean, for sharing your story, and a big thank you to all of our volunteers who make the work that we do possible. Our work is also possible because of generous contributions from you, our committed donors. Despite the context of our current times, you have continued to show up for our grieving youth and families. In May, we introduced our monthly giving program, Roots of Resilience, designed to create community, promote healing, and inspire hope. This program provides a consistent and reliable source of funding for our TreeHouse so that no member in our community has to be alone in grief. The tagline of our campaign is a Chinese proverb that states, "When the roots are deep, there is no reason to fear the wind." In the last 10 months, roaring winds of change have incited fear and threatened to upend individuals, families, and communities across the world. While the branches that uphold the Our TreeHouse community have swayed in the strongest of these winds, they have not broken. Our branches are resilient because our roots run deep. I would now like to introduce Kirk Mahi-Hestad, one of our Roots of Resilience members.
Hello, wonderful supporters of our TreeHouse. My name is Kurt May Hested, and I am a Roots of Resilience monthly supporter. When I was 15 years old, my father returned from helping out on my sister's middle school backpacking trip. He was healthy, fit, and usually full of energy. After that trip, he stayed home from work feeling sick for 2 days, and on the evening of the second day, he had a brain aneurysm. My father died 2 days later. This changed my world and the world of my mother and 3 siblings. Although we had great community, someone's mom was at our house every day for months, bringing food, driving us places, cooking, helping my mom with things. I really didn't talk to anyone about the fact that my father had died. I remember having the feeling that I was supposed to be okay after the memorial. My siblings and I became very close and are still close to this day. And I believe we all had extra struggles due to the loss of our father during our teen years. As I have gotten to know about our TreeHouse, I have often thought about how important this work is for families. It is work that was missing during my intense time of grief in 1979. When I was 15, my sisters were 12 and 17, my brother was 13, and my mother was only 46. As a school counselor, I knew families who sought out support from our TreeHouse, and I have friends, including a very close friend and her daughters, who have participated in our TreeHouse programs. They and so many other children, teens, parents, and family members have benefited from the space created by our TreeHouse staff that is intentionally welcoming and safe. The programs allow for connections to be made with others who understand from experience the meaning and the depth of family loss. Having attended a few years of fundraising luncheons, I have been able to hear the moving stories of families who have been supported by the healing services our TreeHouse provides. I am currently a child and family mental health therapist in this area. In this role and in my former role as a school counselor, I rely on our TreeHouse to provide services for families and to provide professional help. From hosting grief-related workshops to offering consultation to schools for crisis response, to helping me navigate the questions I have while working with grieving clients. Our TreeHouse plays a significant role in the social and mental health services in Rockland County. Being a Roots of Resilience monthly supporter means that our TreeHouse has some dollars they can count on for continued and consistent programming for families. As we all know, this work never has a slow season. It is important that the staff and volunteers have funding they know is secure so that they can do their amazing work without having to worry about where the next dollars are coming from. I encourage you to think about donating in this way to support this much needed and outstanding organization. Thank you.
My name is Erin Needham, and I'm the Youth and Family Coordinator for our TreeHouse. I kind of have an interesting path getting to where I am now because I actually began as a volunteer almost 6 years ago. I was a volunteer with the adult group, the caregiver group, for about 5 years, and I decided it was time to maybe take a little break, just a time to step back and kind of reassess. But about 6 months into that break, our TreeHouse called me and asked me if I would be interested in a position. And I instantly said yes. So that was last March, which was, I think I said yes maybe 1 week before the pandemic started. So if I'm willing to re-enter the workforce after 10 years of a hiatus, taking a break, raising my kids, and homeschool 2 kids at the same time while working, I think that speaks volumes about this organization because I couldn't do it for any other place than our TreeHouse. So I feel passionately about our TreeHouse, and I know that you do too. But in all seriousness, let's talk about the reason why we are all here today. We're here because we are the kind-hearted people who are willing to hear the stories about grief and loss. In the beginning of this program year, we had almost an entirely new batch of volunteers, and I told them kind of excitedly that they get to be part of this special small tribe. And they were like, what kind of tribe are you talking about? I said, it's the group of special people who are willing to look grief in the face. We're willing to hear the stories, and we're willing to venture into that dark forest of grief and loss without the promise of a light. And because you are here today listening and being a part of this, you too are part of that tribe. And our TreeHouse is the light. So if our TreeHouse is the light, the support, you might be wondering, what are you guys doing during COVID? And a few months ago, trust me, we were all asking ourselves the same question. But we put our heads together. We asked ourselves, how can we provide support like we could when we were in person? And the truth is we can't provide the same kind of support, but because grief isn't going anywhere, neither are we. So we came together collectively as a team, we surveyed our families, and we got to work. And we made a plan that I'm really proud of. So to kind of expand off of what Caitlin said in the beginning, I want to tell you what we're doing now. And really the better question is, what aren't we doing? Because we're doing a lot. So like Caitlin said, we're offering a monthly Zoom social event for kids so that they know that they're not alone in their grief. Last month, the theme was Bring Your Pet Show and Tell. It was a huge hit. This coming month is a grief scavenger hunt. We also provide monthly phone calls to caregivers for support. The teens and young adults are participating in a moderated online chat forum, like Caitlin said. And the really cool discovery we've made because of COVID is that, probably not a huge discovery for most, we discovered teens love to text. So this has been hugely successful. The chat forum has been amazing for the teens and the young adults. And it might even be something that we hang on to after COVID, which is pretty cool. We also create monthly art kits that are delivered to the families every month. I have one here to show you. This was our first one that went out. So the families get this on their doorstep every month, and it looks different. each month, but the first one had a quilt square with some fabric markers for the kids to make their own unique square and then mail them back in so we could put them together and make one big Our TreeHouse quilt. And then Sculpey, which is a clay material that is quite spendy. I hadn't realized this, but it was worth it because you mold it and bake it, and then each family member could make a handprint like this one. So these unique kits are being made and dropped off by our amazing volunteers. And some fun facts for you is that 41 art kits since October have been made, which means 113 individual art activities have gone out to our families. Also, like Caitlin mentioned, we are putting out a monthly psychoeducational newsletter. And this is pretty cool. We are having over 60% of our participants open that newsletter when the national average readership for a newsletter is only 13%. But most striking is that we've had 6 youth join our program in just the last 2 weeks. So clearly the need for support is very much out there. So typically I'm the last person who would want to ask something of someone. I don't like it. It feels awkward. I feel guilty, to be honest with you, but I don't feel that way today. I said yes to speaking because I can do it authentically and genuinely. I can look at you and say that it really goes back to our mission. It's so simple, but so powerful. No child or caregiver should ever grieve alone. I wholeheartedly believe this, and I know that you do too. We are living in a time in history when mental health services are saturated and underfunded. Families are isolated because of COVID. They can't get together and participate in these very important rituals and services associated with the death. So because of that, grief support is needed now more than ever. Okay, I told myself that if I was feeling brave, I would go off script for this part. So Katie and Leah were brave, and I know that if they did it, I can do it too. I just want to relate to you all that I've been you for the past 6 years. I've been sitting on the other side of the podium or the other side of the screen, listening and just feeling sad, honestly, imagining about, what would I do if I were in these shoes? What would I want for myself or my family member? And maybe like me, you came into this event with a number in your mind of what you thought you could give or what would be generous. And I ask that you reconsider that amount. I ask that if you're able to, that you give as generously as you can. And I know that's a big ask. These are really stressful times for so many. And I get that. So we appreciate anything you can give. Every dollar counts. We are so appreciative. But the truth of the matter is that there is a cost for shining a light on the dark path in the dark forest of grief. There just is. But our families of our TreeHouse, the Katies and Leahs, and the families that sadly will need us in the future, they need your support now more than ever. So what can you generously give us today to reach our goal of $15,000?
Thank you, Erin. I really appreciate that. I'm going to take over for just a minute here and share with all of you some information about if you haven't already had a chance to donate. Here's the link that you can go to donate today. This will be open until midnight tonight. And then other than that, you can go to our-treehouse.org to donate on that page as well. But I wanted to share with you a couple of things looking at donor levels, things that your donation can help provide. I'm going to just give it its whole screen. So for $50, your donation can purchase 5 grief-related children's books for the Lending Library. $100 can provide 1 hour of grief education for educators and school administrators. $250 offers 10 hours of individual or virtual phone support for grieving youth and families. $500 buys art supplies for 25 hand-delivered activity kits for our TreeHouse participants, which Erin just shared with you. $1,000 sponsors 6 issues of Branching Out, the newsletter for families. $2,500 funds an 8-week school-based peer support group for 6 to 8 grieving students. And $5,000 sponsors an entire family's participation in grief support programming for the year. So I'd like to give you some time to think. I'm going to share with you a graphic right now that is, my mouse just quit working, of course. There we go. Going to share with you a new graphic that we have. This is where we're at right at this minute. So we're going to give everybody a chance to grab something to drink, make a donation if you want. We'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to do some updating, and then Caitlin will be back to join you in about 3 minutes. We'll go ahead and give you all a chance to do that. Well, this is so exciting. We have achieved our goal of 15,000 and then some. We'd like to give a special shout out to a few people. First of all, to Judy Perry, a little teary-eyed here. That was just so generous. Thank you. $5,000. We'd also like to thank Ellie Clothier, Brett Mason, Rachel Greenwood, Cindy Michael, Claudia Wagner, Becky Brunk, and Laura Ashurst for $500 donations. And another generous donation from Anonymous for $2,500. So, wow, I am overwhelmed. And I just want to thank you all for spending the afternoon with us. And let me pass this back over to Caitlin.
Thank you all so much for your donations. It's incredible to watch that little thermometer rise and to see the impact that you're all having. We get to see it on a daily basis, and it's incredible what you're doing for our community. So thank you so much. I'd like to thank our speakers today in the videos, Katie and Aaliyah, Chris, Sean, and Kirk. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, as Terry did at the beginning, Builders Alliance. Thank you so much for your support of this event. I'd like to thank the board of our TreeHouse. You guys work so incredibly hard and offer so much love and commitment to this organization. It's incredible to see the work that you do and the heart that you have for grieving youth and families in our community. So thank you. I'd like to thank the staff team at our TreeHouse. Erin, Mary, and Abby, you are all incredible to have on staff, and it's been such a journey, such a pleasure working with you all on this journey, so thank you. To our volunteers, including Hannah, who put all of the videos together. Thank you so much, Hannah. So much work went into that, I know. And like I said, our volunteers, you guys are the ones who make the work that we do possible, in addition to you, our donors. So thank you to our volunteers. And our youth and families, thank you for allowing us to be a part of your journeys. We feel so grateful that we're able to join you and to walk in that dark forest with you. And finally, thank you, our donors, for the impact that you're making on grieving youth and families in Whatcom County, for making this work possible. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today. We just so appreciate the support from everyone out there. Again, a thank you to the board for all of your help with the event. Thank you, Caitlin and Aaron, for all that you do for our families in Whatcom County. We just are so lucky to have this wonderful organization available. We'd like to wish you all a wonderful day, a happy weekend. Please be safe and well out there. And we look forward to when we can actually see you in person. And we hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining us.